Me. I'm curious, George. I hop in the Porsche, 5 and a horse. I'm ready for war. I'm coming for throats to turn to a ghost. I need to know everything. Now you be surprised at the info you get is by letting them talk, so I'm letting them talk. Gotta keep quiet, maneuver in silence to let them in, chalk up their body, another one body, that's just how it go. I got some secrets, I'm shaking the game so they stay on their toes. Stay in your lane, how to stay on the go. I can play with the pros and act like a rookie so they overlook me. Then I double up again, none of their knows, none of them cold. They just got nothing but never adapted, so I'm the one that's coming with blows. My enemies putting it close, I let them think that they think.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Startup on the Blocks. Good evening, and we're happy to be back here today and all excited about our program we have planned for you tonight. Kelly, you're welcome to turn your mic on, and Lloyd Jr., if you're back there somewhere, please come on board here.
Hey, Lloyd. Good evening.
Hello. How are you?
Doing well. Turned camera on too, so here we are.
Oh, fantastic. And Lloyd Jr. is there from Niceville, Florida.
Hi, how's it going? Welcome, Kelly. So glad to have you.
Thank you. Good to see you again.
Fantastic. So, Lloyd Jr., you have some news for us today?
Absolutely. I came to commandeer Startup on the Blocks this evening to tell you that today or tomorrow is the last day to sign up for our applications for our Spring 2021 Founder and Future Founders Pitch Competition. And so if you all were here in December and you saw how amazing the pitch competition was of our first ever pitch competition for Startup on the Blocks, we are doing that again. And there's really some exciting opportunities in store for you. So we have 2 tracks this time because today also marks the last day of our first cohort ever of some of those winners from our previous pitch competition. So there are 2 tracks in this competition that you are eligible to sign up for. The first is for our pilot cohort track, where there will be a grand prize of $700 for the first place winner and $300 for the second place winner. And those are for the tracks specifically for those who are in the cohort right now and have just completed that. So if you are one of those 16 businesses that are founders that are in there, you should be applying for this ASAP. Then there is the Future Founders track. And the Future Founders track is for those of you, this is your first time applying, you're not a part of the cohort, and you have a great idea. 250 words or less, we want to hear your pitch. You'll put up a profile on Spark XYZ. There you can apply, and that's it. And it's a simple application, and you can join. Put in your application tonight. Right after this, after you hear Kelly speaking, just be on the computer typing away. We really want to encourage you that if you have an idea, this is a way to go for it. That grand prize for the Future Founders is also $700 and $300 for the second place. That is money that you can get towards starting your business, and other perks that are alongside that from Spark XYZ, as well as other F6S.com and others. So we encourage you, jump on the bandwagon. If you applied before and you did not make it into the competition, apply again. This just because you fall down does not mean that we don't want you to apply. Just because you weren't picked the first time doesn't mean that you don't have any chance of running. So this is a new dawn, a new day. Step forward, take that leap of faith and apply. We're waiting for you, and I'll leave it to my father, Lloyd Sr., to take it on to talk about the cohort and everything else.
Fantastic. And so I'll add a couple of comments about the pitch competition. Basically, what I would do if I was applying, I would actually, start writing my 250 words to describe my idea, and just you don't have to be having started on it. It's just an idea. Or if you're already working on something, you can just describe it in 250 words. And you should talk about what your product or service is, talk about you a little bit and how you connect it to your product and service, how you make money with your product and service. And I'm always interested in how big your idea is and whether is something you could sell to a lot of people or a lot of companies. And we don't care where you are in your process, and we don't care if you haven't ever written it down on a sheet of paper before. We want you to apply because we want to help you go from where you are to launching a product or service, and that's what the pitch competition is all about. And even if you don't win the pitch competition, you can tune in to Startup on the Blocks and learn everything you need to learn. Like the people who actually got into cohort last time, they, I told them to do the same thing. I said, just enroll in startupschool.org. Everything you want to know about launching your startup, that's a free tool you can use, and just move forward and just keep collaborating with us here on Startup on the Blocks on a weekly basis, and we'll help you keep moving forward. And we're always here to help you with your idea, and we like to connect you with other pitch competitions, because once you apply for one pitch competition, you can get in, become aware of other pitch competitions, other accelerator programs, and it just opens up the world for a lot of opportunities for you. So just take advantage of them. So Kelly, did you
I
have
have one
something?
more thing to say before we bring Kelly in. I apologize for that.
Okay.
The actual event for the pitch competition is May 13th, which is a Thursday. So I just want to make sure that that's spoken for everybody. So if all else fails, definitely join us for that. It'll be exciting to hear all of these businesses pitch and all the founders coming into the ballgame. I can tell you, having facilitated the last one, it was rough because sometimes they didn't get through with their pitch, or they didn't come to the dress rehearsal. So it was hard for them to get everything out to work, how to present. But that's a part of it. And believe it or not, some of those people who didn't finish still won an award. So showing up is half the battle. So we encourage you, jump on in tonight, tomorrow, get your application in. That's all I have. And I'll leave it to you, Kelly and Lloyd.
Okay, all right, Kelly. I'll have you introduce yourself in a second. Do you remember the first time you heard me pitch my idea for my startup?
I do, Lloyd. And I see Patrick Rooney on here, and I would have to say, how can we forget Lloyd? It was. I will say, admittedly, Lloyd, I'm not super tall, but it was way over my head. I had no idea what you were talking. Not in a bad way. It's just it was technical.
Well,
you had all the expertise, and it was.
Yeah.
It was. I remember.
Well, so the interesting thing, maybe I didn't even understand all I was talking about.
Well, I think you knew exactly what you were doing, but then I think where you've really progressed is you've commercialized that deep technological expertise that you had. So I think that's where just getting out there, putting it out there, and then refining and really, polishing that diamond, like I had the conversation with Carlos earlier about. So really, just
okay, good. So you got a chance to do some of the networking as well.
I did, yeah.
Yeah. Well, in a minute I'll look. So I just got this on my mind. So like I had pitched my the idea of Vercel and Sean. We went up to Mississippi, Jackson, Mississippi. They had a Innovate Mississippi, and so they had a little $3,000 pitch competition up there, and that was my first time actually participating in something like that. But I applied for it, and when I started trying to do all the stuff they wanted us to do and get the pitch deck ready, I said, man, what did I get myself into? But the neat thing was it helped me understand what I needed to do. And the second neat thing was we had mentors, and the mentors just gave us so many ideas to kind of get us through the process. And then we got really good written feedback from the pitch up there. And then the next day, this was when I did your demo day for the collab. Do you remember what came out of me pitching, at your demo day that time? Do you realize what was the significance of that?
I don't know directly, but I know that a couple of years later, you went on to sweep the Innovation Awards. So I'm not sure there was.
Yeah. So and so you remember when they started the Venture Hive over in Fort Walton?
Yep.
And so, do you remember you connected me with that? You talked to them, and then they called me. You
Yeah.
gave them my name, and they called me, and that helped. This was the following year. You know, it was 2014. We were just talking about it in
Mhm.
2015, and so that was my first accelerator program, and so was able to get an accelerator program for veterans, and so what was neat about that, it came with $25,000. So
Mhm.
thank you, Kelly, for referring me to that program. I never got a chance to thank you personally.
You are welcome, Lloyd. Well, you didn't disappoint, so it was a
Okay,
referral
all righty.
well merited.
Yeah, so why don't you take a second to introduce yourself?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm Kelly Reeser. I am a Pensacola native, so born and raised, and grew up in Cantonment, north of the interstate, and studied. Let's see, I went to Dallas for undergrad. I studied Spanish and Latin American studies, and did a graduate program abroad in development management and public policy. I tell you all of this to say that the journey to entrepreneurship is never straight. It's never one way. You should never say, I didn't do this, this, and this, so I can't do an entrepreneurial venture. It's quite varied. And I spent the majority of my career so far in entrepreneurial support. So the collab that you were referencing was a program of our economic development organization here in Pensacola, Escambia County. And I spent 8 years there managing CoLab Pensacola, as well as working on other economic development projects. My scope started as just managing the incubator, and really maybe it's just that I love the people aspect of it, not so much the landlord duties, but I love the people. And so we said, how can we connect those people with other people who know things? And I think exactly like your story tells is, you know, as you begin with an expertise or you begin with an idea, and then as you meet new people, as you further share what you're doing, there's a refinement that comes to that. And then ideally from a support perspective, we want to say that there is a viable business on the other end of all of those steps in the process, whether it's education and training or mentorship, or, you know, more concentrated programs like the accelerators that you can go through. But all of that is leading towards the end product of a viable business. So I found that that I truly loved that process,
Yes.
and but always kind of had the bug. And I will say, you know, just working with you entrepreneurs, I say you because I wasn't naturally an entrepreneur, but it definitely caused me to start thinking in a different way. All right, what do I know how to do, and what problems are there in the world to be solved? And so as we dive in a little deeper, I'll talk about the problem that I'm solving right now.
Okay, fantastic. I'm going to share my screen here, and you and I were talking the other day about this set aside funding for Black and Brown founders, and so I shared this with you, and so I think I talk about this a lot, to the audience and the people when I talk to people like you, and I said, this money is set aside for Black and Brown founders, and so I started off with like 2 billion, and right now this chart is showing 4 billion, but it's actually way more than that. And this was just from doing like 10 to 15 minutes of research. And the first one I heard about was this SoftBank. And yesterday I was reading an article, New York Life, $1 billion. So, and it's just literally amazing, all this funding that's set aside, for Black founders. And
Mm-hmm.
so the big question is how do you actually get access to that money? And so one of we started Startup on the Blocks back in August, and one of the motivations for us starting that was, this money is appearing out there, and so the question is, how is any of that money going to get to Northwest Florida? How is any of that money going to get to Pensacola? And so what can I do, or what can we do to get some of that money here in Pensacola? And so the hypothesis is that there are a lot of people out there with ideas, and we just need to help them turn their ideas and create some minimal viable products and express their ideas, and get connected to some of that funding that's out there. There's plenty of other programs and things besides that money to help you on your journey. And Kelly, just like you were mentioning, here in Pensacola in 2014, they had the Innovation Awards, and I think it was at least 200,000. I know first prize was 100,000, and and so what I tell people, even with $100,000 prize, less than 30 people applied to get that money. Isn't that ridiculous? To me, that's just that's totally it's totally insane.
Yeah. Well, I'll jump into one of the elements that we look for in the companies that we serve is this element of audacity.
Yes.
And I think that's what's required is just the audacity to think that you are just as deserving as a founder in New York City or Birmingham or Miami, wherever, those individuals are saying, I believe in my product enough, I'm going to go apply for these dollars.
Yes.
And so I think that's part of it is connection to the resources, the audacity, and audacity in a good way to believe that you're just as deserving. If you fit the criteria, your venture, can fall into, into these requirements. And I would say similarly, and Lloyd, I don't know if we want to just kind of even as we update that spreadsheet, including in there, it's funding for diversity, and females are often in that case as well.
That's
so female
for sure.
founders are not funded. I think 2.3% is the most recent number. Of 2.3% of all venture capital goes to female founders. And so that's twofold. Females aren't starting as many ventures as males. But then also there's that implicit bias that comes with the funders.
Yes,
so
that's
it's a cycle, and I'm sure that you guys have dealt
well,
with
yeah,
that.
and that really is the reason for that set aside funding, because it all started after the George Floyd killing. That's what the response was from corporate America. Corporate America, and I tell people, if you don't have connections, to Black people or Black and brown people, it's hard to kind of get to them. And then so if you don't have experiences, and you end up with these biases, and you don't know what they're capable of. So these venture funds sitting out there, spending hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars on these startups, and less than 1% was going to Black and brown founders. And so, George Floyd thing made them realize we need to do more, to kind of, start leveling the playing field a little bit. And so that's what these programs are. So,
well, Lloyd,
yeah.
I will say, Robin, your wife, said something to me a few years ago that has never left me, and I think is what we're seeing as an industry shift right now. Is that there's just got to be intentionality as you are, if you're going to change something, you've got to intentionally change it. It's not just going to happen, because if it was just going to happen, it would have happened by now. And so what we're seeing, I think, industry wide is an intentional push of getting, for me, as a venture capitalist, there are organizations who want to intentionally put dollars in my hands because they know that my implicit biases would cause me to more naturally invest in a female founder.
Yes,
and so they're saying, okay, if we want more women founded, if we want more diverse founders funded, then let's put dollars and the decision-making ability in more diverse managers. So I think I'm seeing that. Haven't the hundreds of millions invested in my company yet, but that's the upstream intentionality that we're seeing with really putting
you definitely
have
to
for diversity.
You definitely have to be intentional. Every now and then she comes up with something good. She's not watching
more often than not. If she's not on the phone, I hope it's being recorded.
Okay, yeah. So that's really, really great, and so, but we just want to make sure people understand it's a journey. You have to start somewhere, and one of the things, like that $200 million that Western Mutual set aside for Black founders, Generator got some of that money. And so now we have our own generator, thanks to the spring, we have the generator folks down here doing the G Beta and the upcoming G Alpha program. And so, I'm happy to say that we're actually connected to that money that generator got from Western Mutual. And so we're going to start seeing some of that results of, right here in Pensacola. And yesterday I posted another example of a company that does peer-to-peer lending. They got 4 million. A black founded company got 4 million of that 200 million for seed funding, and so that's pretty. So it just goes to show you that there is a connection, there is a link, and we're doing everything we can to make sure that, you know, here in Northwest Florida, you have the opportunity to get to those things. And by the way, that the pitch competition is for all of these 7 counties, all the way over to Bay County. So if you know any black and brown founders and any of those things, tell them to just write up 250 words and get their application in there. And we got a whole lot of support. We can help them move forward. And Kelly, I'm gonna, you know, we could talk forever, but we'll let you present what you have, and then we'll talk some more after that.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll hang on till you get all set up here.
All right. No, I'm gonna do the scary screen share. Make sure it allows it to jump in. All right. Here we go. I'm going to make it full screen. Are we good to go, Lloyd?
Yeah, we're good to go. And I'll be listening in. Let me know if you need anything.
All right. So I'm going to take just 10 or so minutes, 10 or 12, 15 minutes of your time to just kind of talk you through my my journey, my experience in the entrepreneurial ecosystem here in Northwest Florida, and then kind of culminate with the company that I've recently started, so a couple of years ago now. But my company is called Tech Farms Capital. I'll give you a little bit of the origin story here. It's through an initiative called Northwest Florida Forward, which is a strategic initiative across the 8 disproportionately affected counties, kind of post BP oil spill. How do you develop a strategy for regionally transformative economic development? And we're very excited when one of those strategies keyed around fostering robust entrepreneurship and innovation ecosystem. So as you guys know, if you're familiar with economic development, sometimes those dollars are specially allocated to brand new companies into your region. So they call it whale hunting. We want to bring in new companies, or we want to help existing, big businesses expand by a couple hundred more jobs. And those are all big wins from an economic development perspective. But parallel to that, you've got to have a strategy that focuses on growing your own and growing the entrepreneurs in your region. So these are the pillars of that entrepreneurial strategy that this strategic plan laid out several years ago. And I'm going to highlight a couple of things that, that the communities have taken action on since the development of this plan. And one of those Lloyd already referenced was the Spring, and it was a collaboration of Florida West, the Bantucola Chamber, several other chambers, Gulf Coast Minority Chamber, and several other organizations that collaborated to bring and establish the Spring. It's housed in Studer Community Institute. Quint and his team have done a great job of supporting and sustaining that program. The Spring houses the G-Beta Accelerator. I believe they're soon to open or just opened some physical co-working space for entrepreneurs to work. There's a mentorship program that again, all of those entities joint funded the training of those mentors in order to really stir up and strengthen the entrepreneurial activity in our region. So I feel like, I won't say there's never like a check the box as in we're done there, but I will say that the exciting thing is that that's moving, developing our entrepreneurial hubs and connecting them through this expertise. Another one that's noteworthy is the Doolittle Institute over in Niceville, and they have done a great job of helping kind of, again, as Lloyd said, bringing those outside dollars into our community through SBIR, Small Business Innovation Research grants, and STTR grants. And so that's just basically federal funding that's set aside for either needs that the military has, but and they want to kind of outsource the development or prototyping of those technologies in order to bring that in-house. So it is the Doolittle Institute is helping link our entrepreneurs with those federal dollars. And then the third one I want to highlight is the goal of increasing access to capital for Northwest Florida entrepreneurs and developing a formal mechanism to access funds. So my business partner, Steve, lives over in Bay County, and he and I met through these conversations, through the strategic planning process. And we both ran an incubator at the time, and we just continued to look at each other and we say, somebody really should solve that problem, because that's the biggest challenge for my entrepreneurs, biggest challenge for his. And we said, somebody really should solve that problem. And like the third time we said that to each other, we said, well, maybe it should be us. And so we joined forces in early 2019 to build Tech Farms Capital. It's an early stage venture fund. We're investing in technology startups throughout the region. And for our purposes, the region is the entirety of the Southeast United States. So really up through, New Orleans, Tennessee, the Carolinas, back around through Florida. I'm excited to say that that a Northwest Florida company has, I'll say, passed muster. They passed through our diligence process, and we have an investment in a Northwest Florida firm out of the 4 investments that we've currently made. So that is exciting. Jumping back or zooming out maybe a little bit, because I know that capital, again, as the strategic plan identified, access to capital is one of the biggest challenges for any entrepreneur, any small business owner. How are you going to get that first $1,000? How are you going to get that first $100,000 to get your venture off the ground? And I did a little bit of research. Couple of quick Google searches revealed this really pretty comprehensive list of ways that you can get your companies funded. And then I give you this list because I want to tell you where venture capital lives in this, and that it's a very, very tiny piece of opportunities for funding. So it totally depends where you lie on this list as to what kind of company you're creating. So options are, bootstrapping, personal loans. It could be that you're just going to take your savings account and you're going to put everything that you have into your company, or a lot of what you have, or take out a loan yourself, since the business at the startup phase is not going to have really lending capacity. Crowdfunding, you're probably pretty familiar with, something like a Kickstarter campaign or an Indiegogo campaign. And oftentimes this is kind of pre-purchase of product. The company I was telling you about, Northwest Florida company that we have in our portfolio, is launching a Kickstarter in the next month or two, and they are doing they've created a foot pedal for guitars, and they have basically placed computer processing power in that foot pedal, so that as the analog signal comes in, it's converted to a digital signal. Through digital signal processing, it connects with the phone via Bluetooth, and you can toggle through different types of effects. So you can play distortion effects on your guitar, basically, that you load in on your phone, and then it speaks to the effects pedal, and then it amplifies that effect through as you're playing. So it's a really unique product, really works well, and has gained a lot of recognition from social media influencers and people who've tested it. So they said, hey, the best way for us to get our first batch of production is to go through a crowdfunding campaign. So their goal is to raise, I believe it's like 50,000. And I say raise, but essentially what they're doing is allowing people to pre-purchase their product. So as they put in $150 or $250 or $350, whatever package they purchase, they're pre-purchasing a foot pedal that is to be made. So as soon as that campaign closes, then they'll take those dollars and they'll run their first batch of production. So it's a really unique funding source, and it's difficult because you have to really rally a community. You have to use social media and kind of regular media to really create a following, I guess. So there's a lift there if you want crowdfunding, but again, it doesn't require you giving up any elements of your company. You've got angel investment. If this is often called, I've heard it called, and typically negatively called, like country club money. It's kind of a if you have a rich Aunt Sue, or somebody that's willing to put $10 or $20 or $50,000 into your company, you can start that way. Equity fundraising we'll come back to. There's SBA loans, which are small business administration loans, and then other type of loans just through banks. And then grants that we've been talking about, like these pitch competitions, oftentimes fall into this grant category, because you could win, a few years ago when we hosted Innovation Awards, you could win $100,000, and that did not require you to give up any of your company, or you didn't have to give up any equity in your company, and you didn't have to pay it back. So it wasn't a loan. So those are great. Those are great dollars to have in your business. Again, it comes with a pretty competitive landscape when the dollars are big enough. Sometimes it makes sense to just take credit cards out and get your company started that way, or credit lines, or equipment financing. So as you can see, there's lots of different options and lots of different ways. Venture capital falls into this equity side of the house. And so it's a very, very small slice of the overall possibilities of how you could fund your business. So keep that in mind as you're listening to this presentation as to whether or not for your company, venture capital may or may not be, a good choice. So what is it? What is Tech Farms Capital? What are we doing? We are creating a fund. So we are currently raising money, bringing resources into a fund or a bank account. And our target is generating outsized returns for those investors. So we are looking to invest those dollars into high potential tech and tech-enabled ventures, primarily in the Southeast, with an emphasis on what we're calling intelligent systems and cybersecurity. Investing at the early stage, and we're mitigating risk for our investors through diligence and a portfolio approach. So in this case, what we're looking for in the companies that we serve is a strong founding team. We definitely want, a committed team. We know that they're going to be in this for the long haul. We want them to have a huge market. I believe Lloyd said that earlier on, is, are you solving a problem that a lot of people have and that they're willing to pay for? So typically we're looking for $1 billion markets. That's not $1 billion that's not $1 billion in revenue. You don't have to have $1 billion in revenue as we fund you, because then you wouldn't need our funding. But your total market opportunity has to be at least $1 billion. So then when you're capturing that proverbial 1%, our numbers start to make sense. We need you to have a clear line of sight to 10 million in revenue in the next 5 years. So if you feel like you're addressing a problem, you're addressing a market that your product could then experience very rapid growth if it had a capital infusion, then you might be onto a viable venture capital company. So this is my business partner, Steve. I'd love to go into his entire background, but I'll suffice it to say is he invented the USB 2.0, deployed the earliest version of Wi-Fi, and created an op-amp that makes CAT scans high fidelity and allows sound to be amplified without the corresponding amount of electrical noise. So the neat thing about that is he's got the ability to thoroughly assess the technologies that we're looking at. My background, I've already gone into a little bit with economic development, entrepreneurial support, really putting the pieces together. How can we put, people together with the resources that they need to grow? And Justin is our analyst. I was telling Edna earlier in one of the breakout rooms that he's our spreadsheet guy. And I'm so thankful that he is, because that's not my strength. I can interpret the spreadsheets, but I don't want to build them. So he does a great job of building out our models for us as we're assessing a company's potential. This is our fund in a snapshot that we, according to that strategic plan, we said, hey, we need a professional mechanism to a professionalized way for entrepreneurs to access capital. So we've created that. We're geographically centered on the Southeast US, writing $100,000 to $500,000 checks across ideally 15 or 20 startups, and specifically tech enabled in intelligent systems and cyber deals. This is again what we talked about earlier with that whole audacity element. So we believe in that the Southeast is housing those entrepreneurs that are just audacious enough to build the next great thing. It's ripe for investment. Our investors will benefit from our experience and our ability to focus on this full time. And we do believe thoroughly that early stage tech has the power to transform communities and economies. And so just thinking of Pensacola, App River, started small, but they grew and they employ hundreds of people in our community. Iris, there's lots of other examples of companies that got their start here and they've grown and they've scaled. And now even some of them are starting to exit those ventures. Values, of course, you can't work in or around money if there's not an element of honesty and integrity and trust that you have with your team. But the things that we truly value, and the things that we value in the entrepreneurs that we serve are grit, perspicacity, and audacity. So audacity is just the boldness to think that you are the one to solve the problem that's going to create a $1 billion company. The grit is you're going to figure it out. You're going to figure out whatever turns the market may take. You're going to figure out how to get your product to market. And perspicacity is Webster defines that as a shrewd insight into something. So we call that our we call that as our domain expertise. So again, with Lloyd's background in the Air Force Research Lab, he had a very unique domain expertise. And so he has taken that, all of that knowledge, all that technical ability, and he is bringing that into commercial applications. So that's, I would say, very perspicacious of you, Lloyd. As far as portfolio construction, this is where we stand today. We've invested $425,000 across 3 deals. Actually, it will be updated. This will be updated soon because we closed our 4th deal today. We put another $75,000 into a medical device company that's helping people learn how to walk again after traumatic brain injury. And our next, I'm just going to breeze through these only to say that there are companies in our region that are they're building great things, and they're creating unique technologies that we believe will change the world. So this bottom one, again, not in Northwest Florida, but it's a Nashville-based medical device company is what we put the $75,000 into today. And it basically helps people who have had spinal cord injury or suffered a stroke or have Parkinson's disease. It helps rewire their brain to be able to walk again. So it feels like, in some small part, we're kind of saving the world, which is neat to be a part of. A couple more opportunities. We believe in the market opportunity of the Southeast U.S. and jumping through some of these statistics. I'll pause here just to say, if you don't know the term unicorn in the startup space, a unicorn is a company that gains a $1 billion valuation. And what having unicorns in your community or in your region does to an entrepreneur is says, well, if some people can create a $20 billion company in my state around dog food, then I can do it. And so there's I won't call it magic, but there's like an adrenaline that gets pumping in the entrepreneurial community when you look over to the side and you say, that entrepreneur looks like me, or that entrepreneur is from where I'm from, or that individual is no different than me. They're doing it. I can do it. It really stirs that spirit, and it stirs that drive of the entrepreneur. So the benefit there is that we're getting a lot of those companies being started in our region. So that just bodes positively, because a lot of, I guess, 20 years ago, people would have said that you have to either live in New York City, Boston, or Silicon Valley in order to start a successful venture, and that's just not the case anymore. Regionally, I have been working with an organization called Build an SE. So Build in the Southeast is obviously what that stands for, but it's focused around, I'll just jump forward real quick, focused around a regional collaboration to build the kind of future that we want. So how do we highlight the success stories of the entrepreneurs in our region? How do we highlight the successes of those who are brave enough to build in our region? And I was able to, for this organization, I was able to sketch out the Northwest Florida's Tech Ecosystem Guide. And Lloyd, maybe I'll get you that, the link to that, or maybe you have it already and shared it with this group. But it was a post we put up on Medium and then have spread throughout the Build an SE community so that we're not left off the map, quite frankly. So this is the reason I chose to get involved with this organization, is I'm like, I know the cool things that are being built in this region, but we're not on anybody else's radar because we're not talking about it. And I said, I want to write this story. I want to write this article, and I want to tell the world, or whatever the 100-person readership of Build an SE's following is, I want to tell the world about the great things that are being built in our region, so that, again, it can stir more entrepreneurs to come to the place that they vacationed their whole life and build their companies here because they want to live here. So I think we're in a unique opportunity specifically for technology, because people are working remote at greater rates than they've ever done. And we've got a pretty awesome quality of life for entrepreneurs, and again, the ecosystem and the elements of the ecosystem that can sustain those companies and that growth. So that is me, and this is my team. Questions. So I am going to stop sharing my screen so that I can see any faces.
Great job, Kelly. Yes.
All right, there we go.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. So you covered a lot of stuff there.
I talk a lot and talk fast. I apologize.
Well, no, that was great, and it's always great to hear from different perspectives and different views, and I think that's was an excellent view. And I did see that story you did in Medium, and we did share it, and we appreciate you mentioning what we're doing in there with Startup on the Box as well.
It's a crucial piece of the ecosystem, Lloyd, I
Oh
think.
yeah. And so, but you mentioned how you got your startup going with Tech Farms Capital, and in the early days, uh, I got involved in your ecosystem working group, here, and and so the there was a lot of work that you did way before Northwest Florida Forward, and but we were able to roll that stuff we had been working on here in Pensacola into Northwest Florida, and so that was a really good thing. And so you're saying that just through participating in that group, you found that there was this gap in capital, and so you all founded a startup to solve that gap.
Absolutely. Well, it's interesting, Lloyd, because I think the outside looking in, before I ever took a plunge into entrepreneurship, because my whole career had just taken a paycheck. You go to work, you do a job, and you take a paycheck, and I never had to wonder if that paycheck was going to be there or not. And I think there was something intriguing about, say, you guys, you entrepreneurs that I was working with, that I was like, man, I wonder what it's like to have those sleepless nights, or to, like, I was just intrigued by the whole experience of it. And was, again, outside looking in, and I realized that I was like, well, and I guess one of my hindrances was, I was like, I don't have a great idea. I've never had a good idea, but I don't have a unique expertise. I'm more of a jack of all trades, not like a master of any one. And so I was like, well, I don't have a great idea. I don't know what kind of company I would build if I was going to do a startup. And so I think what shifted in my thinking, I was in a professional development workshop, and somebody said, it's not about having a good idea. It's about listening for a problem to solve.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, all right. So going about daily life, it's listening I listen in a different way. I'm like, okay, what would my ideal customer's rant be? And Lloyd, we heard it every month. We heard the rant of our customer every month in those meetings, saying there is no access to capital. There's nobody in this community that's willing to fund an early stage startup. It went further. There's no bank in this community that's willing to bank an early stage startup. Like, everybody has their regulations. So when they can't do it, the next logical step is, let's create a mechanism that can do it. And so I guess that's where I think my mindset shifted, was wherever you are, whatever you're doing, listen for the places where opportunity lies. And of course, I had the benefit of Steve really wanting to do the same thing, and he had already done a lot of the legwork to get it started. He just didn't have what I'll say the manpower, the woman power, to really get it off the ground. And so I've spent the last year, if I spoke quickly through that presentation, it's because I've given that presentation hundreds of times, talking to potential investors and telling our story.
And so your experience is one of the ways we try to recruit founders, future founders, into the ecosystem. Say, if you're working on a job and you start paying attention to the problems that are going on that job, and you come up with an idea how to solve it. And one of our cohort members, Kimberly, with her, she does training and mentoring of administrative professionals, but that's what she does in her day job. And she saw there was a gap, that people really needed that. And Sabrina with SOS, same thing. They have their company, they're working on their company, but they had this challenge, with doing quotes. And so why don't we figure out a way to automate the quotes? And yeah, it's not rocket science, you know.
If it's a problem for you, chances are it's a problem for somebody else.
Yeah, and so like in your case, you also did Tech Farm Capital, but in my case, what I saw from participating in the ecosystem working group, and you and I talked about it all the time, because like when I would travel to like St. Louis or Dallas or San Francisco or wherever, you know, I saw this, you know, they had events on Thursday nights, and they had networking, and they had, you know, and they had training on some new technology or something. And every place I traveled to, London, you know, that it's the same. It's the same thing. And so I said, and so when I came back to the ecosystem groups, I said, well, you know, we need to be having these weekly events to kind of get some momentum going in our ecosystem here. And then the other thing that I saw was, you know, like in St. Louis, they have a nonprofit called I-10, and that nonprofit specifically works with people at the idea stage, you know, and getting them in, and they actually train them, you know, give them the training on the best practice for building a startup. And then, like I said, you know, when I was down in Miami and to one of their entrepreneur conferences or events, and so I run into this lady, and in their ecosystem down there. So I got, you know, of course I signed up for everything in their ecosystem down there. So I still get emails today about their ecosystem. But anyway, this lady, she said, well, I run this nonprofit, and our job in the ecosystem is work with the companies that are making 5 to 10 million a year, and we help them scale to make more money. And so, you know, and so that told me no matter where you are in the ecosystem, when I travel these places, they got some help for you. And what I saw here in our Northwest Florida ecosystem was we were focusing more on the companies after they got started, as opposed to focusing on, you know, the people with ideas. And that's why with our pitch competition, we just want the idea, just like Cox on their Get Started program. What's your idea? 250 words, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
well, and that, again, it stirs the entrepreneurial spirit in a community. And then you've got that success story that comes through your community, and it stirs the adrenaline in another entrepreneur that says they can do it, I can do it. And I think there is so much value because, you know, I had parameters around what my program could, who we could serve, who we could help.
That's exactly right.
You know, SBDC, I think that was my biggest learning from all those meetings, Lloyd, was I think Kelly Massey at the SBDC had to say it at least 3 or 4 times before I actually heard him say, we don't help people with business plans. We don't write business plans. And I was like, oh, I keep sending people to you to help them write business plans. So again, it's out of those realizations that, you know, the spring as a, you know, that entry point to the community, you know, the G Beta, and I'm excited about the Alpha program.
G Alpha, yeah.
And what you're doing through Startups on the Blocks, like they've got people that'll step up and fill those gaps. It just continues to stir that spirit, and we will see the continued maturation of our ecosystem because we're birthing the babies that can now grow up.
Yeah, and that's right. And so I guess the last thing that I saw and that we incorporated in the Startup on the Blocks, you know, I didn't see, you know, I always thought our ecosystem could be more inclusive. And so I said, well, you know, our nonprofit, the KuKua Institute, we don't have a whole lot of resources, but I say, so if we're going to spend time and money and effort, you know, let's support, let's bring some inclusion to the ecosystem and here in Northwest Florida, get some Black and brown founders involved in it. So, yeah, and so what we do, like, you know, like our event here on Thursday night, so it's for anybody and everybody all over the world. But, you know, like in our internal programs, when we bring our pilot people in, we actually work with folks out of, you know, Northwest Florida, you know, and we limit our pitch competition to Northwest Florida, you know, as well, because, you know, we just want to help, you know, get our thing going here. And so this past week, and we had Blanca on last week out of Atlanta, and through her we were connected with this new, and I don't know if you've heard about this Southeastern hub yet that they're trying to do for entrepreneurship. And I think there was over $1 million, $1.2 million or $1.6 million federal government grant that they're and it's a support system for all the Black and brown founders
Wow.
in the Southeast. And part of that is, you mentioned the Small Business Development Center, but there's, the Small Business Administration. They also have the Minority Business Development Center. And so the difference between those two, and I don't know what the exact thing that Minority Business Development Center does, but when I heard about it 30 years ago and talked to them, they actually do work. They actually do help with business plans. They actually do work, and sometimes there's a fee associated with what they do. But as you all in the audience, if you're in the Southeast, any of these Southeast states, from I think Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, that's a network a new network that's out there to support, people of color, doing entrepreneurship. So, and
Absolutely.
yeah, so
I think I think the timing is. It's right on. You referenced just the changes in the country in the last year, the opportunities that are intentionally being put before us, and I think, I think the uniqueness of the timing is we just need to take the advantage of the opportunities.
Yeah, and you in your presentation about funding, what I noticed in my startup journey and all the programs that I've participated in, I participated in one program in 2016 that was for Black and brown founders down in Miami, and it was like a 6-week training program that culminated in a 3-day weekend down on Miami Beach and the Fontainebleau of all places.
Nice.
and so, but what I liked about that weekend and through the whole thing, but the weekend down in Miami, they put all these Black and brown founders in front of us. It was a group of about 10 companies or startups, and they, we had a pitch competition down there as well. But it was nice seeing these people that looked like me that had got funding and was successful. And so the beauty of it is I'm we're still connected to all those people. We're in the same Slack channels, and everything. So it's really neat. And then just before our Startup on the Blocks today, I was in a founders therapy thing with Goody Nation. So Black founders got on there talking about some of the challenges they are having, with their companies and all over the United States. And so it's just with technology, you can connect and be all over the place. So let's look and see if we got any questions. We've been rambling here, and I had, so
well, as you're looking, I'll tell you that my story is very similar. That there was a woman whose blog that I read, Elizabeth Yin with the Hustle Fund. I read right as we were getting started. I read her blog saying that she started her first fund when her baby was 7 months old or something like that. And so then I was like, wow, my baby's 18 months old. I was like, I can do this. It's like moms can do these things. And so it was seeing somebody or hearing the story of somebody that was like me at the same stage in life and feeling like she can do it. I can do it. It's possible.
Yes. And that's fantastic. And it's just such, and so one of the things I took away from that event down in Miami was that one of the strategies that the startups were using for funding, since you got to realize if less than 1% of the venture funding is going to Black and brown founders and women, where are these Black and brown founders getting funding from? And so one of the strategies that they were using was competing in pitch competitions to raise money. And I met this one lady. She was running a startup called Blender. Yeah, she had won so many pitch competitions. She funded her whole development of her whole MVP.
Wow.
Yeah, and she had a good story, and that's what pitches are, just telling a good story.
Exactly.
And one of the strategies that I used, and that often people don't really think about, is I used the accelerator program, but they were sponsored by corporate America. So corporate America, they would do these accelerator programs, and they would post what their dilemmas are, and then if you're a startup that was doing something along those lines, you could actually apply for their accelerator program. And so that was also money that was unrestricted. Not you didn't have to give up any equity for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that
And
was yeah.
It's kind of like the hackathon is you're being given a problem. So you know
Yeah.
that somebody has the need and how can you solve that problem? And then if it's a good enough solution, you've got a customer on your hands. So it's there's a lot of just creative things in financing and funding and really that entrepreneurial spurring that are going on right now. So did you
Yes.
see any questions? Do we have any?
Yes, I see at least one in here. Kimberly, Kimmy, as we call her sometimes. She's in Niceville, and she it's like, what is the question? Would the Doolittle program be of assistance to a brand new startup?
I would direct you to Carolyn at the Doolittle Institute. So I would their services and their offerings are very unique in that they're very focused. Well, I say that. They just launched a 1 million cups, didn't they, Lloyd?
Yeah, they did. They did.
So that would be an easy way to get plugged into what they're doing. That SBIR and STTR funding does have a lot to do. It can be brand new startups, but it's got to be solving a problem that one of their funders has. So the NIH or the DOD or, any of the military branches. So that is something that Carolyn Fries could answer for you. And Lloyd, I don't know if you can connect her with Carolyn.
Yeah, I can. And
yeah, they could talk her through what the specifics of all those programs are. But again, another program that is designed to stir up that entrepreneurial spirit is that 1 million cups, and they're launching in Niceville, I think in the first Wednesday in May or second Wednesday in May or something like that. So they're going to start hosting that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll definitely. The Doolittle Institute is mainly there to to connect the Air Force Research Lab where I used to work and where I retired from to the public universities, companies, small companies, and stuff like that. And so just Google Doolittle Institute for now, but I'll connect you with Carolyn and can kind of move forward. But it's a good networking spot, and they're located right there in Niceville in the old Kmart building, and they do events too that you can probably log on to and listen in on as well. Yeah. So are there any more? Okay, so I see something. Let's see. It looks like Burcell said you did a great job. Yes. Yes. So I didn't see anything on Facebook either. But yeah, there's so many different funding strategies. It's really amazing. You just have to be really.
Just depends on what you're building. Depends on what kind of company you're building.
Yes, that's exactly right. And so another funding strategy that I've used as well is and I saw a post today, is leveraging these cloud service providers. Like Amazon, Microsoft with the Azure and Google and stuff like that. So all of these companies have programs for startups, and the ones that Google have, they have a lot of stuff targeted to Google for startups, and they have a lot of stuff targeted to people of color. And there's I know you can get funding up to $100,000 without giving up any equity. And I see a question from Facebook, Terry over in Panama City. He wants to know if there's funding for chambers. And so I'm not sure what would be the best way to answer that question. So we're mainly talking about, startup funding. But, just what I also discovered, with our nonprofit, the KuKua Institute, so what I learned from the startup world, I used it in the nonprofit world as well. So like all the, like Google, Microsoft, AWS, Salesforce, all of them have programs for nonprofits. So if your chamber is a 501 C3, you actually get all those free services from them, and the stuff that we do for our founders, we actually host it in Microsoft Cloud, Azure, so that we can provide the services to our startups.
Yeah, definitely some resources through there. The question was about funding, like to start a chamber. Is that what it was? Or funding or startups through a chamber?
Yeah, he has the Northwest Florida Minority Chamber over in Panama City.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and so the deal is just looking for funding and that thing. So a lot of that set aside funding for some of that set aside funding, that $4 billion is for some of it. There's money set aside for nonprofits as well. And so it's just trying to get aligned to all the money that's out there. And if your mission is supporting what they put in the fund there, because there's money being thrown at the nonprofits right and left, and you just have to kind of build up to the capacity to get it. Yeah. So Kelly, we're excited that you're able to be with us tonight, and I'll let the audience know you did have your shot yesterday, right?
I had my second COVID shot at 4:00 yesterday.
Yeah.
So they always say about 24 hours after the shot, it could be. So I told Lloyd I wasn't sure if I was going to just.
Well, we're glad you were able to hold up, and we sure appreciate your help, and we'll definitely be sending companies your way to get support. And that, and so I do understand that you all are aligned with I guess the company Sean started, and so but you also have a way of providing technical support for the startups as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think that's creating a lot of value in our VC firm, is being able to say, hey, you can outsource your development through this fully vetted team of developers. And then we also, Lloyd, you'll be interested to hear this. We met a Mexican connection to first kind of some first batch production manufacturing.
Oh, fantastic.
So it's I think we're creating quite the ecosystem around our fund that is going to fully be able to support the startups that we serve. So we're excited about all the developments.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, we're definitely out of time, but I'm so excited, and thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, everybody in the audience, for joining us. We'll see you next month. I'll post our speakers for the next month, and we'll have some good guests for you in the future. So sign up for that pitch competition, win some money. Take care, Kelly. We'll see you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.